As jury selection continues for the Boston Marathon bombing trial, questions are being raised about who can and cannot serve as jurors. To be seated on the jury, people must express a willingness to consider both the death penalty and life in prison as possible punishments. Yohar Zanayev is accused in the 2013 bombing at the Boston Marathon finish line. It killed 3 people and injured more than 260. He has pleaded not guilty to the charges. Prospective jurors have said they can't be impartial because they believe Zanayev is guilty or they're not willing to impose the death penalty. Father Dominic Legg, a former attorney for the U.S. Department of Justice, now a theology professor at the Dominican House of Studies here in Washington, back with us today. Father, does this criteria mean that faithful Catholics can't serve on that jury?
Well, it depends on how the judge poses the questions and how strictly he interprets the legal criteria, but also on how people answer those questions. So if you're asked, for example, will you apply the death penalty in many cases, well, that might pose a problem for Catholics. If you're asked, do you have an absolute objection to the death penalty in all cases, I think faithful Catholics, even according to the teaching of John Paul II, could say yes.
So there are circumstances where the death penalty is warranted?
Well, what John Paul II taught in Evangelium Vitae, for example, his encyclical in 1995 that addressed this, is that when bloodless means are available to a public authority to protect the public order and public safety, they should be chosen. But in some cases, where it's necessary, other means, like the death penalty, could be used. Now, he thinks the cases are very rare for that, but it isn't a case where a Catholic would be bound in absolute conscience to say there is no case where the death penalty could be applied. And that would mean Catholics could, in fact, under oath say, I'm not absolutely opposed to the death penalty, and then you would be impaneled on the jury.
Many Catholics are opposed to the death penalty, pro-life Catholics especially. So is there can this be seen at all as discrimination against people who believe that way?
Well, I think, are these requirements, this kind of question that's being asked at the impaneling of a jury, is that a good idea? I would say no. In fact, it's a very bad idea because it does tend to give you a jury that's going to be, in general, more favorable to imposing the death penalty. And as Catholics, of course, we think that the death penalty should be used really only in very rare cases, if at all. But it is possible in some circumstances, as the Church has acknowledged for a long time, for that to be applied. The question is a judgment that an individual juror, looking at the circumstances of the case and the circumstances of the society, would have to decide.
So we've talked a little bit about the various possibilities here in terms of Catholic belief. Can you clarify Catholic teaching on this issue of the death penalty?
So the Catholic Church teaches that life is sacrosanct, a gift from God, and that we must always act to protect and defend life. So Pope John Paul II puts the death penalty in the category of self-defense. When there is no alternative to protect innocent life, you can use violence and even potentially kill an aggressor to protect innocent life. That's the context that he sets it in. So when society is so threatened that there's no other alternative, that's when he would say the death penalty could conceivably be used, but he thinks that really it's very rare that that circumstance would obtain, say, in a modern society like our own.
Because there is an alternative.
Yes, because you could imprison someone for life, for example.
So do you see the death penalty laws or the use of the death penalty in America changing anytime soon? We know that there have been problems with it, and there has always been debate over it.
Well, I think the Church will continue to bear witness for the sanctity of life, and that it's very important that we do so. It does look like there is popular support in public opinion polls for the death penalty. I mean, I would hope that we would do more to move past the death penalty and have it be something that belongs to our past.
Father Dominic Legg at the Dominican House of Studies here in Washington. It's always good to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you.